I would like to welcome you, ladies and gentlemen, to Populist Politics, Episode 8. My name is Bobby Funk. I am your host. So happy that you got a chance to join us tonight. It's going to be a very entertaining show for you guys tonight. We're going to talk about two main topics tonight. One is going to be an Iran war update. We haven't done that in about 6 days. There's been some really key developments and very confusing messaging from the administration. First, we're having peace talks. Then we got news actually just now before I started this video that the Pentagon is actually thinking about sending more troops to the Middle East. So we got convoluting messaging there. First, Iran is begging to talk, and then now we're sending more troops. So we'll get into all the recent developments tonight. We're also going to touch on this DHS shutdown that is causing havoc in our nation. We have airports, particularly Austin, Texas airports, having people wait 4.5 hours just to get through TSA, which is absolutely absurd. Trump did do a good thing today. He proposed giving them pay with an executive order, giving TSA officers pay throughout shutdowns and funding impasses in Congress, which is a great thing because if you're not getting paid, would you go to work? I know I'm not going to work if I don't get paid. So these officers who quite literally keep us safe in airports, TSA and Homeland Security, we know, was created just after 9/11 for Homeland Security, the obvious name. And TSA agents, they're officers, they're basically police officers that make sure when we board airplanes that we are safe on those planes and we don't have to worry about our personal safety on a plane. So we're going to touch on that stuff. Earlier in the week, Trump actually sent ICE agents to airports in Chicago, New York, to try and make up for this staffing shortage in the TSA. Caused a bunch of havoc. You know, the media put a spotlight on ICE because they always do when it comes to Trump and ICE and immigration enforcement. So that was very interesting. And we're going to touch on those very important topics tonight. This is episode 8 of Populist Politics. So if you feel obliged to help me out and you enjoy the show, click that like button, give me a nice comment, let me know what you think of the show and maybe what I can do better or what would you like to see in future shows. I'm open for feedback. And let's get into it, guys. So we have the Iran war. Last time we talked, there was the United States and Israel struck the South Pars infrastructure of Iran, their oil and gas fields. And in response, Iran struck the Ras Laffan oil, it's a gas field in Qatar that supplies most of gas for the region and it's important infrastructure for the Gulf. So they were trading blows and they were making this war into an energy war. Previously, it was first the United States striking the military targets, mainly military targets for the United States. For Iran, they were striking back at our military targets. And then they started expanding to strike oil and gas infrastructures for the Gulf countries. And it's gotten bad for the world economy. We know the Strait of Hormuz is closed to the United States. with our oil prices going up over $100 a barrel we've seen. We've seen that come down a little bit to approximately $88 a barrel now, but it's putting a lot of pressure on the United States economy, and the United States, mainly Trump, is trying to get a quick end to this war to relieve that pressure, and he's also getting a lot of political pressure with midterms coming in. He wants the Republicans to win Congress, the Senate, and the House seats that are open, and he doesn't want this on his record for a prolonged war. So we've heard he's trying to escalate to de-escalate. So there's been all this hysteria about Trump he threatened to strike their civilian power plants. On Saturday, he posted on Truth Social that Iran had 48 hours to open up the Strait of Hormuz, or he was going to strike this critical infrastructure that powers much of Iran. So we were all anticipating on Monday morning that a strike would happen, and then Trump around 5 a.m. posted on Truth Social that he was giving the Iranians a 5-day extension because of substantial progress in negotiations. And then Iran responded by saying, "We're not talking to Washington. I don't know what President Trump is talking about." So everyone's like, who's telling the truth here? And then we've heard in the recent days that they've been communicating a little bit in back channels. So Pakistan, Turkey, and I forgot the other country. Pakistan and Turkey mainly are communicating with both sides, passing notes to each other. And apparently there was a 15-point peace plan that the United States proposed, and the plan was very zealous and very zealous, and it was very not pertaining to what the war results are indicating. So you have the United States bombing these military targets. We bombed 10,000 targets, but Iran has still been able to get off their drones and their ballistic missiles and wreak havoc on the region. And Trump wants even more than he did pre-war in this 15-point plan. He wants dismantle of their missile system, no nuclear weapons, obviously. He wants an end to the their proxy funding for Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, which we're going to talk about later. He wants all this end. He wants the Strait of the Hormuz opened, and this is way more than he wanted pre-war. Pre-war, we just said we wanted no nuclear weapons. But now we're asking for more. So a lot of people are saying that these talks are fake, that he's trying to distract the Iranians so that on Friday, we thought, now we got news that he's extending it more to 10 more days from now, which we'll talk about later. But beforehand, it was 5 days. And we were saying that because the Marines and the 82nd Airborne Division of the Army are headed to the region, that we thought maybe this weekend there'd be attack on Karg Island or a different island on the region so they can lily pad that on to a potential invasion of the mainland, or they seize the critical oil infrastructure of Karg Island, which sees 90% of Iran's oil economy is in that island. So if we take that island, then we can get them to concede on our demands and get a strategic victory. But Iran is willing, they said, if we try to get Kharg Island, they're willing to bomb their own infrastructure to not let us get a leg up, which is crazy, because if they dismantle their oil infrastructure on Kharg Island, then there goes their economy. Because oil and gas and energy is the Iranians' lifeblood. And if they do that, it speaks to their existential nature of this war. They're in a war for survival. So they might be willing to go above and beyond for victory, or they can't win a military victory, but they can win a strategic victory by getting the United States to back off and go home and win the economic Strait of Hormuz war and get what they want. So this 15-point plan was utterly rejected by the Iranians, and they submitted their own 5-point plan, which was diametrically opposed or different than the United States plan. They want complete control of the Strait of Hormuz. They want to charge a fee for tankers to get in. This is a lot. Egypt does this with the Suez Canal. So does the Red Sea. So does Egypt. Egypt does this, and the Panama Canal, the Panamanians do this. They charge a fee for tankers to go through the strait. So they want full control of the strait. They want reparations for the aggressions made by the United States and Israel in this war. They also want a guarantee that we will not go in there again and wage war on them. And they want the United States to leave the Middle East, no more bases in the Middle East, and they want to be left alone, and they want their ability to enrich uranium to the civilian level to power their power plants and electricity and the other things that uranium is used for. When a lot of people say uranium, they think of nuclear weapons, but uranium and nuclear power is used for electricity and other civilian infrastructure. So they're passing these notes, they're passing plans, a 15-point for the United States, a 5-point for Iran. That's totally different, and it doesn't speak to any of their good faith negotiations. The United States is the one that wants to talk. So the United States should be putting a good faith plan to the Iranians, because we're winning this war militarily. We are bombing the heck out of them. And what they have to their advantage is their terrain, because their terrain allows them to hide these weaponry underground so nobody can see it. So when the United States bombs these targets, they're not sure that all these missiles and drone facilities are completely destroyed. And from what we've seen so far, the Iranians are still able to get off all these missiles and drones and threaten the Middle East. And it's putting a lot of pressure on other Gulf countries to want to continue the war, because they don't want this to happen again. You have the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia. They're actually pushing the United States to continue this war and to completely dismantle this Iranian regime so they don't have to do anything about it again. You had the United Arab Emirates, the ambassador to the United States, Yusuf al-Atabiya, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he came out with a statement actually and said a ceasefire to this war is not enough for our country, that we want the United States to go in hard, and we want the Iranian regime to suffer. And this is the same stance as Israel, of course, because Israel and Iran are mortal enemies, and they want Iran completely out of the Middle East so they can do what they want. And so you have this peace plan, and you have Trump coming out today and extending that to 10 days. And it's interesting because we don't know if this means we're having more dialogue and maybe the two sides are realizing the reality of the talks and they're conceding and making a better deal for the two countries that they can agree on. Because let's be honest, this 15-point, this five-point plan, they're far apart. They're not going to make a deal on this end. They both have to concede a little bit. So maybe there has been progress in that, or maybe it's just another distraction technique from the Trump administration to say, Iran, we're giving you more time, so they're more off guard for an invasion this weekend or an invasion next weekend with this 10-day extension from today. So we're going to be on high alert for a weekend invasion, either this weekend or next weekend, because Trump loves to do invasions on the weekend because the markets are closed and the oil prices can't go up on a weekend because they haven't had time to do that. So a time to adjust to the certain activities and actions that Donald Trump wants to make on weekends. So you have this military escalation. Iran has came out and said if these power plants are hit and if the deployment of these Marines in these 82nd Army Division, if they end up attacking Karg Island, they're going to do two things. They are going to keep bombing these Gulf countries and their infrastructure, but they're going to do a second thing. They are going to, like I mentioned, the Red Sea, they are going to try to disrupt the trade in the Red Sea, which a lot of the food industry comes from the Red Sea. And there's all this hysteria about maybe the Houthis joining in Yemen. The Houthis are an Iranian proxy that governs Yemen, and that would make another front to this war. So you have the Iran front with Israel and the United States above, and then you also have down below, Yemen's here, Oman is here. So Yemen's going to get into this war and bomb the Red Sea, while Hezbollah in Lebanon at the top is bombing Israel, and they're bombing Israel. And the Houthis on the other side can bomb Israel from two fronts. And that's going to further strain these THAAD and Patriot interceptors if the Houthis in Yemen and the Hezbollah group in Lebanon is attacking Israel from two fronts. They might not have enough missile interceptors to defend against that, which would seriously escalate this war and put pressure on Israel. I don't know if they would be able to handle that with the United States negotiating, or they won't see, well, if the invasion happens, then the U.S. would be in the war still. But let's just say the U.S. is out of it. Will Israel take it on their own to attack those fields? Because, those energy infrastructures, I mean. Because Israel has shown a willingness to go above and beyond and attack Tehran's oil infrastructure and their civilian their civilian infrastructure as well. So would Israel take their own initiative and bomb that, the Houthis could get involved still. So this is interesting, guys, so far. And then we also have the TSA stuff to talk about. And before we get into the TSA, one thing I forgot to mention is with this negotiations with the United States and Iran, you have Israel still engaging with Iran. They are still bombing each other. With Israel actually killed the IRGC Navy commander today. They killed Ali Raza Tangasiri. The United States was or was not involved. I saw a lot of conflicting messaging. You had Bibi Netanyahu, the Israel prime minister, say that it was a joint United States-Israel mission. But then Brad Cooper, the admiral of the Central Command for the United States, said that it was only an Israel operation, but they did give them the okay, and they approved of this strike. So that's interesting. You have those two countries, like I mentioned, Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia and the UAE pushing for the United States to continue the war, and you have some people on the middle, Qatar, who does a lot of business with Iran, but they are still very unhappy with the Iranians because they struck that Ras Laffan gas city, which is one of their main economic infrastructure, lifeblood. Oil and gas is basically, and entertainment is basically the Gulf oil countries' main economy. And with Iran attacking airports and hotels, this is seriously straining on their economy. And they want it to be over, but they want it to be over long term. So that's why some of these Gulf countries are encouraging the United States to continue to completely destroy this regime. Okay, I digress for the Iran war. That's kind of what's going on right now. You have these mixed messages from the United States. First, we're negotiating. Now we're sending more troops. And it mirrors what happened from the start of the war. You had those negotiations in Switzerland and Oman with the United States and Iran. But on the sidelines, you had those reports that the United States was developing this large military presence in the Middle East. So you kind of have the same thing going on. You have Marines and 82nd Division Army coming into the region while they're still telling the world that they are negotiating. So which one is it? Is it a negotiation in good faith, or is it a negotiation as a war tactic? Okay, so we have the DHS shutdown, which is shocking the nation with a lot of these TSA police officers, security personnel, whatever you want to call them, are going without pay. You have people calling off because they're going without pay. And then you have Donald Trump sending ICE to reinforce the TSA and to try to relieve this pressure from this shutdown that is absolutely unbelievable. We have had in this first term, I want to say like 3 shutdowns. This is not how our Congress is supposed to work. This is not what the founders envisioned for the Congress. They didn't envision two sides, Democrat and Republican, fighting constantly over funding and depriving the American people of basic services. Services to fly on planes. Many Americans use these planes to go to work. They use it to celebrate vacations with their families. And this Congress seems to want to play political games over American people's lives. And that is unbelievable. You also have the destruction and corruption of Congress. I don't know why I said destruction. It's corruption of the Congress. You had this vote with Nancy Mace that Nancy Mace tried to bring to light Congress people sexually harassing their staffers, and they voted no to that. So you have sexually deviant Congress people. You have people that are willing to hold the United States of American people hostage for political reasons, that they don't support what ICE was doing. So now we got to hold the whole DHS department hostage because of a funding impasse. And Trump is saying in an executive order that he's going to pay these TSA officers in now and in the future of more funding impasses. And you have today, they had another vote on DHS funding, and the Democrats once again voted no and voted to keep this hostage situation going on. The American people are suffering, and Congress just doesn't care. They don't care. And you also have the SAVE Act, which Trump says that he's not going to sign any more bills unless the SAVE Act is the one that he's signing. And you have this debate in the Republican spaces on whether the filibuster should be destroyed. The filibuster is a rule in the Senate where you need 60 votes to end debate on a bill and vote for that said bill. So you have a very tight Senate where there's not enough Republican members to get to this 60 votes. They are 53, I want to say, usually. 53 Republicans voting yes, and then the rest are not voting to get that 60 number, and you can't pass anything in the Senate. So for years, they've been debating whether a party in charge should dismantle this filibuster and return to a simple majority, which would just be 50 Senate members to pass a bill. So I don't know what you guys think of that, if the Republicans should end this filibuster and get things passed before the midterms, because we haven't gotten anything passed as a party. We passed the One Big Beautiful Bill, the controversial One Big Beautiful Bill, through, and not much else, to be honest, in big-time legislation in the first 2 years, basically, of Donald Trump's. I can't believe it's been, in November, it will be 2 years since Donald Trump got reelected as President of the United States. That is crazy. We are going to be in the 2028 presidential election very soon. The 2027 Republican and Democrat primaries are coming up soon. So maybe we'll have a discussion show about the candidates, definitely in 2027, but we can do like an early show where we talk about the early favorites for the nominees. But yeah, that's what I got today. Let me know what you think of the show. We talked about the Iran war updates, what's going to go on there. We also talked about the DHS shutdown. So I hope you like the show, and comment and like the video, and have a nice day, everybody. Populist Politic out.